Hello, everyone. John Bartz and Todd Hogan here with NCSI. Welcome to our discussion today on the natural evolution of service management. Today, we'll be discussing what the next generation of ITSM looks like, specifically from the ITAM perspective. We found some really cool old school vintage tin robots representing the current state of ITSM, and you'll receive one of those as a thank you gift for attending today. And we've also got a promotion going on that we're going to talk about later after the demo, where you can trade up from your old school robot to a new and exciting bot of the future. So welcome. Please ask questions in the Q&A. We'll be watching those and monitoring that throughout. And Todd, let's go ahead and learn about the natural evolution of ITSM that includes ITAM.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good day. Appreciate you joining us today. I think we targeted the audience today of those of you, many of you who already have Ivanti Service Manager or maybe another competing product. But what we thought we'd talk about today is, over the last few years, I'm sure you've been working on things like incident, change, problem, request, knowledge. As you're growing out your service management world, this is a little definition from the ITIL folks about what service management is. It's really about the services that are provided through IT, operations, services, and equipment to kind of operationally meet the needs of the business. So as we think about that, the things that are changing in our world today, many of you you're probably using service management today in a way that gives you a little bit of insight about what assets are in your environment. So what we're going to talk about today is what is asset management, how is it different, and how does it kind of a natural evolution. So let me share my screen. So asset management is a different discipline in a lot of ways from service management. In the asset management world, we're kind of concerned about the financial, contractual risk, program, project management, chargeback, the financial aspects of those assets, whereas IT service management focuses more on the operational side of things. So next click. If we were to look at the comparison, especially for those of you who are current Ivanti service management customers, the really neat thing that you have, if you have not already moved to asset management, is that it's the exact same platform. And what that means is that the asset management module is just an extension of that same CI record, where now you can build out your CMDB on the service side. You can then extend that into the asset manager database on the asset side, but we're still leveraging the same platform, the same record, the same asset or device record can now provide disciplines for you around both service and asset. And there are some common things. There's lots of differences between these two technologies, and we're going to point that out today, but there are some very common things. For example, the standards catalog. You have a service request catalog today that you're offering services to your folks when they want to onboard and come on to self-service and order something. Well, asset management has extended that catalog, and we'll show you what that looks like on the asset side so that you can have greater power and greater flexibility in knowing what's in stock, a little more granular detail about that asset, about that catalog item. And then, of course, the request management process is very common in both disciplines, because whether I have service by itself or asset by itself, I want the ability to request an asset. It's time to refresh or buy a new laptop or onboard a new employee. So this is a very common discipline that exists in both disciplines. And of course, in the platform, the Ivanti Service Management Platform, it's one of the same, which is what makes this evolution so easy and natural. For those of you who are just now on service management, a very easy way to get you to the next level. The lifecycle support, certainly on the operational side of service management work, we're concerned about, is that asset, is it functional, is it working, and are we got it using in operations we have, the relationships that exist to other things. When we have a problem, we put an incident in, we repair it, we maybe make a change or a problem, and we evolve our service management capability to make sure that the services and assets that you're delivering to your end users are functional. Well, on the asset side, it has its own set of very similar lifecycle states. And a little different from the service management side is that we begin with the procurement of that asset record. So in Asset Manager, we care a great deal about the purchase order and knowing that that asset is there. We're going to talk more about that in detail. And then the last thing that is very common in both worlds is making sure that our enterprise is safe. We're leveraging those relationships on the service side and the asset side to keep everything functional. So let's go to the next slide, John. And one more click. So as you guys are building out today your service management world, I'm sure you're being asked for more and more things that are relevant to the asset details, like purchase orders or when it's time to refresh an asset or dispose of an asset. How do we handle disposal certificates? And there's one thing that's changed in all of our lives in this last few months, and that's the increase of remote workforce. So for the first time in the history of modern IT, have we had such a massive migration out of corporate office buildings into remote workforce. So a lot of our assets now they're out there in the wild at somebody's house, or they're in a car sometimes, or in a backyard sometimes, they're at a neighbor's house. People are working from everywhere. And so understanding where these assets are, both from a service management perspective and from an asset management perspective, is very important. So I'm sure that you're getting more and more demands to move into asset management controls as well as you are your service management. So let's talk a little bit about some of those primary drivers. Next slide, John. So the first thing that we hear from the asset side, and I'm sure you've heard this in your organizations when people are talking about asset management, you have what's in the CMDB, which is kind of the things that are on the wire. They're there, you're managing them, but you might be getting asked questions like, well, what should be there? What's not on the wire? What did we purchase? And your executives are saying things like, I'm not sure what we have. I mean, we know what's on the wire through our discovery tools and through our CMDB integration, but what about the things that never get connected, especially now with the Internet of IoT devices, the Internet of Things? And so asset management really is begging that question, what do I have and what should I have? And that includes a new dimension that we're going to talk about today in asset management, of knowing what should be there based on the procurement record, something we're not doing all that often in the service management world. The next one is I need to know what it costs. This is a key driver, is businesses are wanting to know where those costs are allocated. Are they all in sales? Are they in marketing? And be able to track that cost through the life cycle of that asset. The next one is pretty common in both worlds. I'm concerned about security, compliance, and risk. And so in the world of asset management, this has become a pressing need. And let me explain why. Let's go to the next slide. I'm sure many of you are familiar with organizations like the Center for Internet Security. They have 20 key metrics that tell an organization how to keep their environment safe. And I've kind of highlighted the first couple there because I think it's critical to asset management, and a really wonderful reason for why you should extend your evolution from service management into full-blown asset management is because the Center for Internet Security, as an example, is saying, look, you cannot keep your environment safe if you don't know what hardware and software is in your environment. And so that alone is a major driver if you're looking for funding or a reason to grow your service management platform into an evolution of service and asset. That's a key takeaway. Get involved with your security team. As we bring more and more Internet of Things devices into our world, as we have more and more people moving out into remote locations, kind of like we never have seen before, this demand is just, it's escalating daily. And the ability to keep all of those devices safe has everything to do with both service management, asset management, and security management. Next slide. Another thing that we hear is that people want a better end user experience. Now that's what incidents and problem and change is all about, but it also has an impact from the asset side. I need to understand, so that I can give everyone a new laptop, I need to understand the costs and the renewal conditions and what it takes to renew those devices, and find and provide the funding so that I can give people an asset when they need it out of inventory, or to refresh on a timely fashion. So again, it's just another addition, of another dimension of importance to the service management platform, to be able to integrate tightly with procurement processes and vendors and financial implications as it relates to being able to give yourself and your organization new assets, improved assets, and so forth. The other one we see is to scale the business. Probably many of you have a multitude of different tools that you're using to track assets. Some of it is coming through your CMDB, some of it's coming through Endpoint Manager, some through SCCM, some through BigFix, some through heaven. We all know there's lots of Excel spreadsheets, the number one selling asset tool in the world. We say that with a little tongue in cheek, but there are there's lots of different ways we're tracking assets. And so what your customers and your executives are looking for is to enhance the investment they've made in service management. And the really neat thing is that you can move into assets so easily in the Ivanti platform. So this scale the business thing is right in line with your evolution of taking the excellent work you've already done in service management, and adding asset management to that portfolio. And the last thing that we hear is that people want something called enterprise fiscal accountability. They just want to know the numbers that you tell them about how many assets you have, where they're assigned, what organization is using them. They want that data to be accurate. And so that's another reason we need to get this seamless integration between service and asset. Okay, next slide. Let's talk a little bit, before we go into the demonstration, about the additional things that asset management focuses on that's maybe a little different than what you're used to in the service management world. So in asset, kind of like in service, you have the request module where you've gone out and done some great service requests, and people can self-provision themselves a laptop or a desktop. You're already doing that, and that's wonderful. But what we want to make sure is that that is completely integrated with the asset side, so that when you guys make that request, we need to make sure we can check stock and say, oh yeah, we've got one of those available. Let's not order something we already have. And as you probably are aware, in your environments, there's this issue around, we call it asset hoarding. Everybody wants to hang on to their assets. They don't want to return them because they're afraid they won't get them back, which drives up the cost of both hardware and software. Gartner estimates in the area of around 30% in the first couple of years are potential savings as you get your arms around that hoarding or unused software world. So that's where it begins in the asset side, much like in the service request side. But the next thing that's kind of unique is there's a red box here around purchasing. So in the world of asset management, unlike service management, we are absolutely in sync with what's being purchased. We want to know everything that's in our environment as it came through the doors through an acquisition. Where oftentimes on the service side, we tend to be comfortable with just knowing what our inventory tools have found, maybe SolarWinds or EPM from Ivanti or SCCM. We use those discovery tools as the way of populating the CMDB, which is critical to both service and asset. But in the world of asset management, we need to know what came into our environment via a purchase, and that way we can compare knowing what's been purchased versus what we're discovering. And we'll talk about that as we go through our demonstration today. So we're going to give an asset tag. It's going to begin its life cycle. Much part of this in this asset lifecycle management phase, we're doing both service and asset activities at the same time. We're assigning it to a person. We're fixing it when it's broken. We're doing those things in conjunction. Again, another natural evolution from service management. Across the bottom, you'll see these discovery tools, which you're using today in your environment, oftentimes to populate your CMDB. We do the same thing in asset, but we're going to compare that record against a purchase record to make sure that we're on sync. And then once those pieces are in place, the other elements that you can get out of the asset management movement is you can get better compliance management, you can get chargeback, risk, project planning, the ability to forecast acquisition spend. So this is where the ITAM additions will really bring another level of value to your service management world. Okay, so this is probably a very familiar screen to each of you that are using Ivanti Service Manager today. You'll see that I'm logged in here as the administrator. Well, the first thing we want to point out is that Asset Manager and Service Manager are built on the same platform using the same business objects, the same lists, forms, workflows, business rules. It's all the same. So the neat thing is that once you have, if you're a new installation, maybe you installed the asset module at the same time. But if you're an existing service management customer and maybe you've been working for years and you don't have the asset module added, once that module is added, then you're going to get a whole new set of roles. And you'll notice here the asset administrator role. So notice the context change as I change this role from what you're used to seeing: incident, service request, problem, change, all the things that you're used to seeing. When I change that to asset administrator, we're going to simply get a different view from the same business objects and the same CI record relevant to asset management. So let me click here on asset administrator. And instantly, I now have a view of the world that is focused on asset management. It's just that simple and that easy. Here, we're going to start out with a series of dashboards that are all out of the box. Everything I'm going to show you today is available the minute you enhance your current environment with Asset Manager. So you're going to see asset types broken down. I'm going to see assets by location. Here I've got assets by organization, so I can just really quickly say, here's all the assets in R&D, or here's all the assets in Mumbai. Very easy to see. Down here, this is where our discovery tool's coming in and saying, hey, I've got one laptop here that I haven't seen in the last 30 days. So somehow it's either offline, it's broken, but it's a visibility for you, the service management folks, to be able to see, what assets are not being found. Excuse me. Let's take a look at hardware assets to see the additional information that is relevant from the asset side. So I'm going to click here, click on one of these little records here. So I've got a laptop here, and I'll just point through some of the additional fields you're going to see. You're going to see that's the name, the asset tag, and the serial number. Those are the same fields you've been using for years in service management. They're just repositioned in a new form with a new view of data. Down here, there's some new information. You'll notice that there's a term used: assigned manufacturer, assigned model, assigned part number. Well, how is that different than the model, manufacturer, and part number you're using today in Service Manager? Let me explain. Remember in our PowerPoint slide where we talked about procurement information? So when we populate the asset repository, we want to start first by going out and finding all of our procured asset records, so that we can say this is what should be in our view of the asset management world. And so because they're two different, because we're going to use them in two different ways, and I'll show you that in just a second, we named them assigned manufacturer, assigned model, assigned part number, etc. And so this is the information that would have come from CDW, Insight, SHI, Lenovo, Dell, HP. We could have pulled that data in directly. Over here, we're going to see where the asset's assigned from an asset management perspective. And we're going to see the location where it's assigned, again, from an asset management perspective. Here's the lifecycle status. If the asset were in repair or any one of these different states, you would see it. But in this particular case, it's assigned. I can tell whether it's in production, test, or development. And I have some context here that your security folks will love, because you can put some information in here about what's on this device. Is there sensitive data? Do I have regulatory data that's a concern, like HIPAA or SOX or PCI? And you can change any of those to be what you want by just going into the editor and change these default values. Over on the right side, because we're going to know that purchasing data, we're going to tell you the purchasing date, and we're going to automatically calculate for you the age of the asset. And we'll compare that to the useful life of the asset and give you reports automatically that say, hey, you've got 100 laptops within 3 months of renewal. You better start getting the orders ready. So that's kind of the basic information that is on this tab. Now, this information is different than the information you're used to seeing in Service Manager. Because remember, in the asset management discipline, we care about the financial side, where you guys kind of care more about the operational side from the Service Management discipline. But notice all these tabs that go across here for any given asset record. So if I click on this Discovery tab, you'll see that this is coming, in this case, coming from Endpoint Manager. It comes back and gives me the manufacturer, model, part number. That's the information you're used to seeing today in Service Manager. But what we wanted to do was compare that so that we could always have a dynamic source saying, this is what that device is being, it is from the Discovery scan. And so if you look here, you'll notice that I've assigned this to myself, but when it was last ran from Discovery, it looks like Michael Whipple was the last person to use it. And according to the subnet address or gateway address of where that agent ran from, this thing is not in Rio de Janeiro, it's in Cairo. So we're using that dynamic information from the Discovery scan that you're used to seeing in Service Manager, but we're comparing it to where we think it is from an asset management allocation perspective. And then, of course, down here's all the other things you're used to seeing, all the things that are coming in on the Discovery scan that you're already seeing in Service Manager. So this new dimension is the ability to see what's going on there. The other thing we see from that Discovery scan is all the software that was found on that device. So we're going to go out from Endpoint Manager or SCCM. We're going to tell you everything that was found on that device. Now, what's exciting about this in terms of this new world we live in is Ivanti has added some really neat new features around something called licensable software. So now what happens is I can see of those 108 different things, which include Java installers and different language installers. Well, licensed software comes back and says, we think of those 108 things that we've discovered, there's 9 of those that probably need a license. And so what Ivanti's done is helped you understand which of all that software is something you should be concerned about from a licensing perspective. And we'll talk about that in a second. But as you're hearing more and more about managing assets from a asset management perspective, these key elements right here are really what's critical. I've got the basic information that came from as if it came from the vendor. I've got the discovery information that tells me both all the details of the last scan and where it was located. And I've also got software, both everything that's installed and the things that I should care about. Let's jump over here to the finance tab, because this is the other area in the world of asset management that's so important. Now what I can see is I'm linking directly to the purchase order that particular laptop was purchased on. So if I go here and I can even drill into that and go directly to that purchase order, and I can see all the information associated with that purchase order. I can see how many devices are on that purchase order. I can see the shipments and invoices if I've tied them, but more importantly, I can see the cost, the unit cost of that device. Or in this case, there's 2 different devices, but if I come back to the asset record itself, I can see this device costs $27.80. And so this is what your financial folks are after, your executives are after as they're planning and forecasting. This is a new dimension that you can add to the service manager information about managing that device. Is now you can see what it costs and how that cost applies to across other organizations. This particular asset's been assigned to manufacturing. So as we pointed out earlier, I can come back here to these dashboards and say, hey, show me all the assets that are in manufacturing. And I haven't done it in this system yet, but I've done it for several customers, that when I drill down here, I can actually get the total cost of how much inventory or devices by cost are going out to these organizations. So oftentimes, maybe you've heard customers complain and say, hey, you guys never give us anything at IT. We're always, we never get anything. Well, this is a way to actually show them exactly what's been allocated by organization and even the costs of those allocations. So lots of tremendous capability here on this side. The other thing that the tool will do is it'll automatically create straight line depreciation. So if you'll notice here, if I change this salvage value, then it will automatically recalculate when I leave that field. Watch down here, it'll automatically recalculate your straight line depreciation. So an extension of financial transactions is the ability to see what those costs are over time. So maybe I've got a cost that comes in on a contract, or even if I'm integrating with an incident cost, I could tie that in here into this price line item and give you the total cost of ownership over time, which is really cool because a lot of times we tend to focus on acquisition cost, but as you guys know, there are lots of other costs relevant to what it takes to keep that asset running and alive. Lots of other things. We have vendor management. We tell you who the vendor is. We have contracts that tell you, that links you to every contract. So as you bring in contracts, every contract can be linked directly to the asset it governs. So in this case, it looks like I've got a VMware license, an entitlement license assigned to this device. If I wanted to see that, I simply click go to, and now I have a direct linkage back to the information about that entitlement license, and I can see that all the details there. I can also even see what devices have been assigned proactively by the asset manager or the license manager to use that particular piece of software. It looks like I am an authorized user, so I can compare that against what's been discovered versus what's been actually allocated. So tremendous opportunity around contracts. If there's any questions, please put them on the board or let John know and we'll stop and answer them. So let's talk a little bit about product catalog, because that's kind of an enhancement over what you're currently using today. So let's take a look at an asset management catalog item and see the new additions that you get with this integration. So we're going to give you the make, the model, the part number, all of that information that you're used to. You can associate a picture with that asset so that all the assets that are of that type, here's the two, I have two of these assets that are available. If they were any in stock, I could click on the in stock button and it would show me everywhere they're located in stock. So the catalogs in Asset Manager are completely integrated with stock management, which is really nice. When your guys are going to your request management system today, you can go in and check the catalog, present a nice picture with a visual of that asset, and also immediately check to see if it's available in stock. All of those are just additional add-on capabilities that you can extend your service management world with asset management. So that's a kind of a quick overview. I wanted to jump out and show you for just a few minutes before we go too much farther, some of the new things that are happening in the world of discovery around something called Ivanti Cloud or Neon that will be really useful for you. But one thing I do want to point out, everything about this asset record is nothing more than a role change. So if I wanted to be even more limited, I could be an asset manager, or I could be a contract manager. Just like you're controlling roles in Service Manager, everything I've shown you today is immediately available as soon as you add this new dimension of asset management to your existing Ivanti service management platform. And one thing I was going to show you, let's just jump back over to this asset record. I went in just to show you how easy it is. I added over here a brand new category called incident. So we can mix and match based on what the role is. I could go in here and see all the incidents that are associated with that same asset record and mix and match services capability and asset capability as needed by your team. So that's the beauty of it being on the same platform, is that I can mix and match capability with any of the user roles so that you can see both worlds. All right, let's jump over for a second and talk now about Ivanti Neuron. Sorry.
Yeah, so Todd, there was a question about the new Ivanti neurons. We've been seeing a lot of news about that. And is that what we're going to be seeing here today, or is that a conversation for a whole nother webinar?
Well, I'm going to give you a peek at it, because I think this technology plays so well right now into understanding how you can know what assets are in your environment and where those assets are as we're going through this COVID-19 thing. As your assets have been moved out of your buildings and out of that secure blanket of your protection, you now need some visibility into being able to know where those are. And Ivanti provides in this Neurons the ability to see that. It was formerly known, for those of you who know, it was formerly named Ivanti Cloud. They're introducing a whole bunch of new, neat capabilities. But let me show you just a couple of things that would help you to better manage and understand where those assets are in your environment. So right here, this is just our little company. This shows a graph of where all of our employees are. So I can go and see it. I can drill into this graph into Utah and show every location where one of our employees exists. I can do that across the globe. So if you think about trying to extend the capability of your service world to be able to say with certainty, I know what assets I have and I know where they are, think about this technology. This is fabulous to be able to take location services and bring it together so that I can see visually where those devices are. The other thing that's incredibly powerful about this new technology from Ivanti is the ability to manage software. So let me show you a little thing here called Software Insights. Software Insights is the ability for Ivanti to take data from our discovery tool. And for our little demo environment here, we went out and found 70,000 different pieces of software. Well, what Software Insights does is it takes that 70,000 unique titles and says, of all those 70,000, which one of those do we think are licensable? Man, I don't know about you, but I don't have the time to go looking through 70,000 titles to find out what I care about. So Ivanti's gone out, taken their definitive software library called the DSL, moved it up into Ivanti, the Ivanti cloud infrastructure, and now can tell you of those 70,000, there's 269 titles that we think you ought to be concerned about from a licensing perspective. And looky there, it brings them all back in a list broken down by title, version, and edition, and tells you exactly what you should be concerned about. But even better yet, it goes out and tells me what I should care about from a who's using it. So notice here I've got Adobe Acrobat Standard, Adobe Acrobat Professional. We'll look here, if I click on this, it will actually tell me the devices where that's installed. So, well, that just gives you incredible insight into what's in your environment, what you should care about in your environment. But what's neat about that is that when we link this with Ivanti Asset Manager, check this out. If I click on the Software Asset tab, it automatically brings all of that insight of all the licenses that I should care about and brings them in here so that I have them automatically in Asset Manager, so that I can see exactly what I'm concerned about. And you'll notice, if you remember our demo, we had this one down here for VMware. You can go to the end of that. It's down here. I had this VMware license. So notice here, if I go to installations, there's that laptop that we talked about. There's my laptop right there. Shows me where this is installed. And then I can go click on the entitlements and say, well, it looks like I've installed 5, what's that, 8? I've got 2 there, 3, 6, 8. But guess what? If I go to my entitlements and look at my entitlement records, I can go in here and see how many I actually own. And we drill into this. Let's go here. I clicked on the wrong thing. Entitlements here. I only own 4. So there's only 4 legally that I can use. But if I look here, I'm using 8. So great visibility in this new dimension that Ivanti is providing to help you understand what software is out there, what software should be licensable, and then be able to compare that to what you legally own as you build out and bring in your contract information with your entitlements. So Ivanti, the Ivanti services that are being delivered now in the cloud are fabulous. I'm going to show you a couple of other examples. So let's go take a look at devices. And I can see all kinds of information about a device. So if I drilled into something here, I can see all the details. I can go and look at Edge Intelligence, shows me where it's at, out in that picture, remember. I can see the detailed view of everything that's on that device. Let me scroll down here a little bit so you can see this. I can drill into any one of these to see more details about the battery, about the environment that it's in, different variables, all kinds of robust information about that device. Let's talk about the different types of connectors that this service can bring into play. So here you'll look at all the different, here's an example of the different connectors that are available today, and there's more being added every week, it seems, that I can go out and grab something from, obviously, Endpoint Manager, SCCM. I can bring in something from Office 365, Azure, Microsoft Active Directory, Azure Directory. There's CDW connectors, ServiceNow. These connectors allow me to go grab that data from whatever source and feed that information, reconcile that data, and normalize that data, and then bring in certain elements that I want into my asset tool so that when I'm populating my asset repository over here, I can bring that in from a variety of sources so that what comes in here is all being cleaned up and managed from over here in this. You're having to see me fiddle here because I've got the Zoom bars covering up my icon. So all of these different tools can be used, and you can even go into dashboards and see all the different dashboards for how this information comes in. You can see that there's all kinds of different dashboards about software usage, memory usage, disk storage usage, and where it's at. And then if I go to the insights, I can go to something called Smart Advisors. Smart Advisors allows me, this is one I love, device reconciliation. I've got all these different sources out there that I'm bringing data in. I can go and compare different ones and say, what's coming in from Active Directory that's not in Ivanti Service Manager today. So if I were to highlight these two and bring it over, and if I were bringing in both of those sources, it would show me the differences between those two. So an incredible amount of power to leverage the data that's in your environment, compare it against each other, and then feed that into both Asset Manager and Service Manager automatically. So this is the new Ivanti Neurons. It's an incredibly powerful tool, both from a software and hardware perspective, and it feeds directly into both Asset Manager and Service Manager so that your CMDB objects and your Asset Manager database is being populated with the most accurate and correct information possible. And in the world of asset management, if your data is not accurate, nothing really matters because no one will trust it. So I'm going to pause there. Are there any questions? Let's see if we can answer some questions.
Yeah, Todd, there was a question back on your scenario with the VMware software. Are you able to remove the software if you notice that you're over and you drill down and see that somebody has it that shouldn't? Are you able to take action on that?
Ivanti has automation tools, both in EPM and automation, that would allow you to go and automatically reclaim that. That is a service request that could be created, and you could absolutely reclaim that software. It's a feature of another piece of the Ivanti portfolio that can be tightly integrated, seamlessly integrated. It's not an actual feature of the Asset Manager license, if you will, but it's just another component of Ivanti.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for showing us, giving us that sneak peek of the neurons. We've been hearing a lot about that. I'm going to go ahead and share now. I'm going to take this back. And I wanted to share with everybody the asset review, the assessment review that we have for you here. So we're going to be sending you out the really cool vintage robot here that we found. They're still on the way, so give us a week on that. But if you want to spend an hour with Todd and his team going over assessing what you saw today in your own environment and getting Todd's input exactly specifically on what you need in your environment. He's going to make himself available at no charge for a 60-minute ITAM review. If you'd like to let us know, you can email Todd there, his email address, thogan@ncsi.us, and we'll send you out a really cool robot. You can upgrade to the really cool, I think it's a dancing robot. So just a special promotion here for August. We'd like to give that offer to everybody who's on the call today as well. So Todd, great demo today. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I love seeing the one pane of glass where you can just dive in and see it from that different perspective and role. That was really interesting. So thanks for that. Anything else before we conclude today?
No, all I can say is that as you move from service management to asset management, it's seamless. You've done a lot of the work already. And you can extend your value proposition for your company tremendously. So if you have any questions or needs, we're glad we're here to help you. And so thanks for spending some time with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. Stay safe and have a great weekend. Thanks, everyone.
See ya.
Bye-bye.